After Ludum 41 I didn't really want to participate again, but as it was getting closer and closer I got hyped more and more. So 1 month before Ludum 42 I started analyzing my past performance, and based on that I extended and improved my toolkit. But that was already discussed in another video. If you'd like to check it out, just click the top right corner of this video. And now, let's begin. I woke up at 6 AM local time, 6 hours after the theme got announced. And the theme was running out of space. And it could be worse. I got dressed up and went outside for some inspiration. I walked for a while, bought some stuff for the weekend, then I arrived at home. I brewed a coffee, sat down and started brainstorming. What meanings are there for the word space? Outer space, the key space on your keyboard, or play with the player's available space like a shrinking island, or space like the three-dimensional world we live in. After this thought, an idea of a weird, strange place at the frontier of space and the void or nothing came to me. By 9:50 I had a vague plot about a scientist who wants to leave everything behind, so in the promise of something else than this world, he tries to escape space itself. It would be a platformer, but with very distinct worlds, each with a different rule set or mechanic. It looked promising and I could test my newly acquired art skills. After this I needed a little break, so I jumped straight into coding, and by 11 I had a developer typeset and also the basic platformer mechanics. And then I started thinking again. The soundtrack of the Yellow Submarine movie totally hooked me. Classical instruments mixed with modern ones, sound effects and strange vibes. So I came up with a basic plot. Herr Tannhäuser, the maddened scientist, inspired by my friend, is voyaging further and further into the abyss, while the player doesn't really know whether the surroundings are stranger and stranger by the frontier's nature, or the professor's mind is the one that's getting more and more insane. I also named the project as well. It's called Wayne. Nothing better came up, sorry. I divided this into 5 chapters. The first one is the Sea of Words, a minimalistic light world with classical music, shattered trees, plants, words floating around, strange creatures saying strange things, sometimes meaning something, sometimes not. Then the player enters the Sea of Time, where time doesn't really flow as it should, and memories collide with reality and the tone is getting darker and darker. And suddenly the player enters the Sea of Monsters, the darkest chapter of all, where the protagonists must fight through different terrifying looking Lovecraftian monsters. Then the professor leaves the dark place, entering a calm, clean and slow-paced Sea of Spirits, like a final testimony of Tannhäuser's relief. And then finally he leaves time and space behind, entering a blank void where he ceases to exist. As you could have already guessed, most of this won't be even close to being finished. Say hello to Scope Creep. Now it's time for some relax. It was already noon, so I started heating up the pan and had a quick lunch break. Then I started thinking about the mechanics. In the Sea of Words, the player could transform into a bird and flap a few times. In the Sea of Time, the player could rewind time itself. At first I wanted it to be like in Braid, but the scope was already getting out of hand, so I just stick with the teleporting back to a past location thing. And in the Sea of Monsters, well, the player could kill the monsters there with something. So that was the moment I decided to scrap that whole chapter, because it's already too big for a jam and it doesn't even fit into the game that well. In the Sea of Spirits, well, players could take a spirit form, letting them go through walls like spirits, and that was it. 3 words are already good enough for jam, I thought, and the end scene would be just a blank white screen where, after a while, the credits start rolling. Then I had a quick overhaul on my very vague to-do list, making it much more detailed, making it easier to track my work. By 4 PM I had working mechanics. Currently, as you can see, the different versions of the player were just indicated by different colors, like the bird form is a yellow square, the past self of the player is a blue, and the spirit form is a green one. Around this time I got a bit sick for some reason, so I took a shower. I was thinking about that maybe this game doesn't really fit into the theme, so I came up with the idea of a wall chasing the player from the left side, symbolizing the collapsing of this unstable place. If the player gets caught before reaching the end of the level, they have to restart the level. After the shower I brew a coffee, and I realized that I'm pretty much behind because this is a very art heavy project and currently 0 art is done. But that's future me's problem, so I delayed that to tomorrow. I had maybe 5 or 6 hours left for the day. I started to lose motivation, my progress started to halt, so I decided to work on some more lightweighted things. I created a simple text bubble for the characters, which pops up with some text when the player approaches it, and also a flying bird, which surprisingly looks good in my opinion. I worked on the in-game menu, the main menu, created some very primitive art for it, saying that it's only temporary, spoiler it wasn't, and at 11 PM 70% of the coding was done, maybe 10% of the art, and 0 sound or music. So I decided to end the day and fell asleep around midnight. I wanted to wake up at 6 AM, but I had a serious headache when I woke up, like I had some kind of nights out last night, so I slept 1 hour in. Today was our day. Before noon I wanted to be finished with graphics, so in the afternoon I could work on sound and music. So I opened up Acerbrite and ArtGauge and started drawing. It wasn't as hard as I thought, because even after 1 or 2 weeks of using these softwares, practice had a result. By 10 I had tilesets, decorative sprites and also simple NPC animations. I think I did a pretty solid job with these. But I decided to scrap the Sea of Spirits. Even if I already have the mechanic for it, I already spent too much time on the first 2 chapters sprites and I'm getting pretty tired. By noon the player animations were done as well, but they were pretty terrible and I wasted a lot of time with them. I started to feel lost, stressed out, and I didn't really believe that this will work well as a whole by the end of the day. Currently there was 0 music, while the whole atmosphere was built around that mostly. If I couldn't make a good soundtrack, everything was in vain. And after that I even have to polish this mess, so it wouldn't feel like it was just glued together in the last 5 minutes. But if I've already invested so much in this, I don't want to give up just now. So after a lunch break I brought forward my new MIDI keyboard. In the next 3 or 4 hours I only managed to finish 1 music. It was full improvised and made in only 1 take, I think. But that's barely enough for this kind of project, so my motivation went under deeply again. I couldn't keep the pace of the music, which started to frustrate me, so I subconsciously slowed down to a slower, sadder pace. And then I realized this and I got angry and went crazy. I started to play as fast as I could. It was a mess, but in a good way if you know what I mean. And it gave me the idea of changing the wall speed as the music spacing changes. It's strange how confusing moments like this give sometimes the best ideas. By 6 PM I implemented this and also made some simple sound effects, so the game won't be that blank. Then I discovered a movement bug, which I was working on till 9:30. When finally it was fixed, the sudden realization came to me that I have to throw away the Sea of Time as well. I would be happy if I could finish at least 1 chapter, so let's not waste more time, just finish this. Just 1 hour before the submission hour I managed to finish the Sea of Words. I couldn't resist the urge to show off my already created assets for the Sea of Time, and 1 chapter is nearly 0 content. So I cropped out a small part from one of my previous songs and made a very short map from the assets. Yes, using that music, even if it's short, is considered cheating, but I had to show at least some kind of preview. With only one chapter, the whole plot is ruined. So under 20 minutes I put together something and started the final polishing. Just a few minutes before midnight I uploaded the builds, then started working on the post. It's 3 AM in the morning, it's done, it's over, everything is complete. Finally, let's have some sleep. The reception wasn't as good as I thought. I thought that this game is much better than my previous gem submit, A Nightmare on the Canned Goods Isle, so this must perform much better. But surprisingly, my ranks were improved only slightly. One thought that's comforting me is that nearly everything I used this time was a newly acquired skill, so it's a good thing that under a few weeks I could get this good with these things. Lots of people said that they would glad to play with a more polished version, and this kind of project doesn't really fit into the scope of a game jam. Some even wanted to continue working on it and wanted it to be open source, so I uploaded it to GitHub. But till today nobody contributed, so maybe it was just a flash in the pan. Currently I feel like I don't want to participate in a game jam ever again. But I know myself, so thanks for watching and see you at Ludum 43.